Hello everyone and welcome! So we talked about the two characters that put everything in motion. Now it's time to talk about the two iconic warriors from the ancient Shurima. So sit back and enjoy the legend of the Ascended brothers. Nasus and Renekton were two brothers with very different personalities. When young, Nasus always avoided all physical conflicts with other children, and instead, he focused on studying in the library of the sun. For his age, he was an incredible student. He was able to read, memorize, and critique the greatest works of history, philosophy, and rhetoric even before he reached the age of 10. Renekton, on the other side, lived for battle. Every day he went out and fought other children in hand-to-hand combat. The two brothers were close, and so Nasus kept protective eye over his younger brother, helping to ensure he didn't get into too much trouble. However, Nasus soon moved away as he was chosen to join the elite Collegium of the Sun, and while he was gone, Renekton's skirmishes became increasingly serious. Nasus was well known for his sense of logics and resource management that came from studying the history of Shurima, since after all, its history was full of wars. This knowledge turned Nasus into the youngest general Shurima ever had. On a rare visit home, Nasus was horrified to see his bloodied young brother return home from yet another street fight. Fearing that Renekton's violence would either imprison him or kill him, Nasus told Renekton to join the Shuriman army where he could at least make his dark side useful. Officially, Renekton was too young for his duty, but his older brother's influence smoothed away this detail. Years passed and the two brothers began to change Shurima's destiny, each in their own way. Nasus became one of the greatest war leaders in the history of Runeterra. He was able to calculate and predict the flow of battle so accurately that he was able to win wars without losing a single soldier. And each time he did, it pained him deeply. He was loved and respected by all who served in his legions, and he guided the armies of Shurima to countless victories. Renekton often served under his command, usually at the head of the army. He became known for his ferocity and toughness, but also for honor and bravery. The synergy between the two brothers was simple. Nasus planned the wars, and Renekton won them. One time, Renekton earned the title Gatekeeper of Shurima after fighting a desperate battle in one of the mountain passes bordering Shurima. The city beyond the pass would get destroyed by the invaders if they weren't stopped. So Renekton gathered his warriors and tried to give the citizens time to escape. He didn't expect to survive that night, let alone win the war while outnumbered 10-1. They held the pass for a day and night, long enough for a relief force led by Nasus to arrive. Renekton served the front lines for decades, and he never lost a single battle. His presence was inspiring to those fighting alongside him, and terrifying to his enemies. His reputation was so powerful that some enemies surrendered as soon as they heard Renekton was marching on them. More years passed and Nasus became a victim of a terrible sickness. Some say he encountered Amumu, a long-dead child king said to bear a terrible curse. Others believed he was laid low by the evil magics of an Icathian cult leader. Whatever the truth, the Emperor's own physician declared with a heavy heart that Nasus was incurable and would be dead within a week. Dark times followed, for Nasus was Shurima's brightest star and beloved by all. The Emperor himself begged the priesthood to save him. After a day and night of communing with the divine, the priests declared it the will of the sun god that Nasus would be blessed with the Ascension ritual. When the news about Nasus arrived to the front lines, Renekton raced back home to find Nasus as a pale shadow of his former self. When the day of Ascension arrived, Nasus was little more than a skeleton, his flesh wasted away and his bones as fragile as glass. He was so weak that as the gold light from the sun disk streamed down onto the Ascension dice, Nasus was unable to climb the final stairs and step into the light. But the love of the two brothers was to be tested for the one last time. Renekton lifted his brother in his arms and climbed the final steps, fully expecting to be obliterated in the process by the holy energies of the sun disk. He deemed his sacrifice a small thing to ensure his brother would live on. He was just a warrior, after all, albeit and talented one, while his brother was a peerless scholar, thinker and general. Renekton knew that Shurima would need Nasus in the years to come. Renekton was not destroyed, however. Beneath the blinding radiance of the sun disk, both brothers were raised up and remade. Nasus was now towering jackal-headed being of great strength, his eyes glittering with fierce intelligence, while Renekton had been transformed into a heavily muscled behemoth bearing the likeness of a crocodile. They took their place alongside the other rare ascended beings of Shurima and became its protectors. While Renekton had always been a great warrior, now he was virtually unstoppable. Nasus too had been gifted with great powers far beyond the human understanding. Now he could not only study history, but live it too. Throughout their new incredible powers, the Ascension had one side effect on Renekton. His human side began to fade away as his ferocious side awoke. One day, the Shuriman army sieged the city called Nashrame. It was an easy victory, and when Nasus arrived to see the outcome of their battle, he witnessed Renekton butchering everyone he came across and setting the city on fire. Renekton led the massacre, and it was he who set fire to the great library of Nashrame, destroying countless irreplaceable volumes before Nasus was able to contain it. This was the closest the two brothers ever came to bloodshed, standing in the center of the city, weapons drawn against each other. Under the stern, disappointed gaze of his brother, Renekton's bloodlust faded as he finally turned away in shame. Over time, his title of Gatekeeper of Shurima turned into his new title, the Butcher of the Sands. During the reign of the Emperor Azir, word arrived that a magical being of fire had escaped a magical sarcophagus that bound it in its underground prison. It had laid waste to a Shuriman town before fleeing across the desert to the east. Renekton and Nasus traveled into this town to recapture this legendary foe. While they were absent, the young emperor, guided by the manipulations of his advisor Xerath, attempted to join their ranks and become one of the Ascended. The results were catastrophic. Renekton and Nasus were a day's ride from the capital, but even so, they felt the shockwave as the Ascension ritual was misused. Knowing that something terrible had come to pass, they raced back to find the glorious city in ruins. Azir had been killed, along with most of the city's populace, and the great sun disk was falling, drained of all its power. At the epicenter of the ruin, they encountered Xerath, now a being of pure malevolent power. The brothers were trying to bind Xerath in the magical sarcophagus that had held the ancient being of fire. For a day and night they battled, but the mage was powerful and would not be held. He shattered the sarcophagus and fought back with spells fueled by the power of the sun disk, which crashed to the ground as they fought. At this point, they realized that Xerath could not be destroyed. His powers were great, but his physical strength could not match that of Renekton. Renekton was able to wrestle Xerath into the depthless tomb of the Emperors. There he shouted at his brother to seal them in forever. Knowing that there was no other way to stop Xerath, Nasus reluctantly did as his brother ordered. As Renekton and Xerath fell into darkness, Nasus sealed the tomb for all eternity. In the darkness, Xerath and Renekton continued their battle. For uncounted years, they fought as the once great civilization of Shurima collapsed to dust in the world above. Xerath whispered poison in Renekton's ear, and gradually as the centuries rolled on, his words combined with the ever-present darkness took its toll. Piece by piece, Renekton's sanity cracked, and Xerath used it as a weapon. He started corrupting his mind and twisting his perception of what was real and what was imagined. Outside, Nasus was devastated by the heavy burden of guilt for damning his brother to darkness. He now wandered the deserts, slowly falling into insanity. Soon, the name Nasus became little more than a legend. Thousands years later, and the tomb of the Emperors was opened by the mercenary Sivir, freeing Renekton and Xerath. Renekton roared his fury and thundered out into the Shuriman desert, sniffing the air for the scent of his brother. Renekton now roams the deserts, seeking the death of Nasus, the traitor he believes left him to die. And that is the legend of the two Ascended brothers. If some of you want to get into more detail on how Renekton became insane, you can read his exact thoughts on his lore page. It doesn't really enhance or expand his story, so I didn't feel the need to awfully voice act Renekton for you. But I still wanted to inform you that you can actually read about how his mind was twisted. So if you've enjoyed this video, feel free to rate it or comment below. For more channel updates, follow me on my social media, especially now since I'm in the middle of tests and exams. For some chill gaming, you can follow me on my Twitch. And with that, thank you so much for being here and watching this video. And as always, thank you come again. So I hope you guys don't really mind waiting a bit longer than usually, because I am in the middle of tests and exams and I have no time at all. And since the lore videos take about maybe 20 hours, maybe even more of work in total, you can tell that, yeah, I probably will slow down the production a bit. But it shouldn't be longer than, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks tops, and then I should be back. Since it's summer, I'll have a lot of time to make more videos. So, see you in the next video.